Good morning, Unity Church gardeners. I'm out in the garden at church enjoying this wonderful space. And I'm going to ask you today to think about what the most valuable thing is that you can think about. What do you want more than anything else in the whole world? And as we think about that, we will light our chalice. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith, the light of truth and the warmth of love. Join me as we sing our flame song. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. And we move to our joys and sorrows. We have our rhubarb leaf, we have yellow and blue stones. And you may do this at home, move closer to the screen. Think about things that have happened in your life, in the world around you. And some things make us sad, and some things make us happy. And I'll give you a moment to think about those things and do this, and maybe you just keep it in your heart. Thank you for that. We are grateful for this place. We are grateful for the people that are around us, that we love and support us. And we will think about what's valuable. I think when we say that the candle and the chalice are a symbol of our faith, the warmth of love, the light of truth, I think that says something about our values as Unitarian Universalists. And Dan has a story about something that people value, and I'm going to let Dan take it away.
Today's story is onions and garlic. An old tale retold by Eric Kimmel with pictures by Katja Arnold. Onions and garlic. Once upon a time, there was a merchant who had 3 sons, Gedaliah, Hananiah, and Getzel. Getzel was the youngest. His fathers and brothers called him Getzel Nar, which means Getzel the fool. Getzel wasn't stupid, but he was kind-hearted and trusting, unfortunate qualities for a merchant. Whenever he set out with goods to trade, he tried hard to please the people he bargained with. He ended up selling his goods for less than they cost. Getzel, how could you be so foolish? His father complained. Oh, Getzel the fool has done it again. His 2 older brothers smirked, shaking their heads. Well, the day came when Getzel's father refused to allow him to trade anymore. He had to stay home, adding up the accounts while his brothers followed the trade routes over land and sea. Getzel longed to see the world. Oh, he pleaded with his father to send him out with a merchant caravan or find him a place on a sailing ship. His father refused. No, you will never be a trader, Getzel. You believe every sad story you hear. You pay the first price asked. You let others set the value of your merchandise. If I gave you something to trade, you would only be cheated again. Then send me out with goods of little value. If I am cheated, you will not lose much. Perhaps I may come home with a profit. You have little to lose and something to gain. Getzel argued so well that his father changed his mind. He found Getzel a place aboard a merchant ship and gave him some goods to trade, the cheapest he could find. A large sack of onions. "Thank you, Father," Getzel said. "I will do my best to bring home something of value." "It will be enough if you bring yourself home safely." Getzel's father wiped tears from his eyes as the ship set sail. Really, of all his sons, he did love Getzel the best. The ship sailed from port to port. Getzel tried his best to sell his onions, but the other merchants only laughed at him. "Farmers, not merchants, sell onions," they scoffed. Nobody wanted to buy them. Getzel had to eat his onions himself to keep from starving. One night, while the ship was still at sea, a hurricane arose. Howling winds tore away the sail and blew over the main mast. "Our ship is sinking. Swim for your lives," the captain cried. A giant wave crashed over the ship, sweeping Getzel and his onions overboard. The anguish cries of his fellow passengers rang in his ears as the ship sank beneath the waves. The storm passed. One by one, the stars came out. Getzel drifted alone through the night, clinging to his sack of onions. Morning found him cast up on a deserted beach. Sparkling pebbles covered the shore as far as Getzel could see. He picked up a few pebbles and discovered they were diamonds. Well, the smallest was as large as a bean. Some were as big as goose eggs. Getzel filled his pocket with the precious stones in case he should need some for money. Then he shouldered his sack of onions and went in search of food, water, and human beings. Before long, he came to a city. Getzel discovered that its people spoke a language similar to his own. He asked where he could find something to eat. They directed him to a cook shop. "I would like to order a meal," Getzel told the cook. "How will you pay for it?" the cook asked. And no wonder. Getzel's hair was stiff with brine, and his clothes were all rags. With these, Getzel took a handful of diamonds from his pocket. The cook sneered. "Nah, diamonds aren't worth anything. They're so common we don't bother picking them up." Discouraged, Getzel turned away. The cook took pity on him. "Oh, I won't refuse a hungry stranger. Come inside. You may have as much soup as you can hold." Getzel followed the cook into the kitchen. The cook laid out a bowl of soup. Getzel began to eat. The soup had a savory flavor, but something seemed to be missing. Getzel realized what it was. "Oh, this fine soup, it would taste even better if you added some onions," Getzel said. The cook stared at him in surprise. "What are onions?" "Don't you grow onions in your country?" asked Getzel. I never heard of them." "I will show you one." Getzel took an onion from his sack. He peeled off the skin and cut a little piece for the cook to taste. This is wonderful, the cook exclaimed. What do you do with onions? You can do everything with them, Getzel said. They can be cooked, fried, grilled. They are good with soup, meat, bread, salads. Show me, the cook said. Getzel chopped some onions and added them to the soup. He fried onions in a skillet. He added them to a salad. Then he served the onion meal to the cook. We must show this to the king, the cook exclaimed. He and Getzel went at once to the royal palace. The cook told the king about the amazing new vegetable. I would like to taste one of these onions, the king said. Getzel peeled an onion for the king. Extraordinary, the king cried, taking a bite of onion. He said to Getzel, You must show my chefs how to cook with onions. He sent Getzel to the royal kitchens, where Getzel helped the chefs prepare an onion dinner for the king. I never knew food could taste so good, the king declared. How many onions do you have? Asked the king. Nearly a sackful, Getzel replied. They are easy to grow. I will show you how to plant them. Then you can have as many as you like. I will buy all the onions in your sack. What do you want for them? Asked the king. Oh, not much. A sack of diamonds from your beach will be enough. Is that all? The king said. I can do better than that. I will give you 100 sacks of diamonds and a ship to carry you back to your country. So, Getzel the fool made a good bargain at last. When Getzel returned home with 100 sacks of diamonds, his father and brothers could not believe their eyes. They could not believe their ears when Getzel told them about his adventures. Imagine that, a land where onions are worth more than diamonds, Gedalia said. Hananiah replied, If the king would give that much for onions, imagine what he would pay for garlic. The two brothers purchased enough garlic to fill a small ship. Then they set sail for Getzel's island. They arrived after a long voyage. Gedalia and Hananiah looked around with astonishment. Everything Getzel had told them was true. They walked along the beach picking up diamonds as big as goose eggs. Our fortune is made, Gedalia said. He and Hananiah set out for the royal palace. They found it in the middle of a vast field of onions. Gedalia and Hananiah came before the king. Each carried a large sack of garlic. Bowing low, they said, Your Majesty, we are merchants from a distant land. News has reached us that you love onions. Oh, yes, said the king. Onions are wonderful. I eat them all the time. I do not know how I ever lived without onions. Then you will be pleased to hear that we have brought you something better than onions, Hananiah said. Oh, what could be better than onions? The king asked. Garlic, Gedalia answered. Garlic? Garlic? What is garlic? We will show you. The two brothers took their sacks of garlic to the royal kitchens. They showed the king and the royal chefs how to add garlic to soups, stews, sauces, and salads. They demonstrated how it could be roasted, and eaten by itself. The king tasted a piece. He swooned in pleasure. "Ah, you have spoken the truth. Garlic is better than onions. How much do you have? I will buy it all." "We brought a whole shipload," Gedaliah said. "What do you want in exchange?" asked the king. 100 sacks of diamonds from your beach would be enough," Hananiah told him. "Diamonds?" the king sneered. "Diamonds aren't worth anything. Garlic is a delicacy of rare value. You deserve something worthy of that gift. I will give you the most precious treasure in my kingdom." What could be more precious than diamonds? Gedaliah and Hananiah wondered. The king said, "You will see." Gedaliah and Hananiah returned home after the voyage of many months. Their father met them at the harbor. "Did you find Getzel's island?" he asked as he came aboard their ship. "Oh, we did." "Was the king pleased to learn about garlic?" He was." "And did he trade the garlic for diamonds?" "Oh, not exactly, father," Gedaliah sighed. "The king didn't think diamonds were valuable enough." "What did he give you instead? Rubies, emeralds, pearls?" Gedaliah and Hananiah raised the hatch so their father could see for himself. He peered down into the hold and found it filled with onions. And that is the tale of onions and garlic.
Thank you, Dan. That was wonderful. Were any of you surprised at that story? I have some onions here, but could onions really be more valuable than diamonds and gold? You know, long ago, people ate very simply. In much of Europe in the Middle Ages, they didn't have refrigeration, and so all they could do was dry food and try to eat it as quickly as they could when it was fresh. Meat often spoiled, and that's really gross to think about. We would just throw that out. But it was too valuable, so they would do things to cover it up. And in Europe, they had onions, and they had shallots, which are a kind of onion, and they had garlic. And there were green onions, and then they had herbs and things. They would import spices, things like pepper, and they would use those herbs with those strong scents and strong flavors to flavor their food. And salt, of course, was really important to that too. Pepper, if you think about it, pepper came from Indonesia, the land we today call Indonesia, on the Spice Islands. Today that's called the Moluccans. But it was so valuable that it was traded all the way from the ocean in Indonesia across to India and China and all the way across to Europe. And it was highly valued. The onions were so important. People cooked cabbage and beans and onions were actually worth more than money. So the story we read is not really too far from the truth. If we go back a little farther to the ancient Egyptians, which is like 4,500 years, well, 6,000 years before now, onions were so important that they actually were used in the process of producing mummies when the pharaohs died. It was part of their religious ceremonies. So these things were extremely valuable, and of course we know today they're very flavorful. I cook with onions a lot. The shallots are another kind of onion, or at least it's in the onion family, and they're pretty tasty as well. Garlic is one of the things we grow here. This is one that was grown by my friend Bailey Webster. And inside the garlic are many smaller pieces that we call cloves. And these smaller pieces are what we planted. There are some behind me in the garden right now. You can see the garlic. This is what it looks like when it's growing. And it has flat leaves. If you take a little bit of a leaf and crush it and smell it, smell is wonderful, you'll realize this smells like garlic. It'll be very familiar to you. Something interesting is happening to our plants right now. They are getting ready to flower. And we call this little thing that's coming up, when you get here in the garden, it'll probably be nice and curly. You can take a scissor and cut a few to take home. This is a garlic scape. And you can chop this up and put it into salad dressings. You can blend it to make a bean dip. I've got recipes for that on the parent resource page. You can stir fry it. I put it into eggs, just chop it up and put it into eggs. It's a really wonderful little burst, brilliant burst of garlic. So this is the time of year when these can be harvested. Underground, the bulbs are growing. So that's happening down low. The other kind of onions we have here in the garden, I'll show you. I'm standing in front of our green onions. Every year they flower and produce seeds, and if you look really carefully, there are some bumblebees on here that are feeding and sticking their long proboscis, their tongue down inside there. The flowers will produce seeds. We'll collect some of those, we'll replant them, and the green onions just kind of come back every year, which is super, super cool. The little ones here, this is kind of like that in miniature, and most of you will know that these are chives. They have just about finished blooming, and they're also producing seed, but these leaves are great for cooking too. So we have green bunching onions, we have chives, we have garlic, all growing in our garden. The garlic bulbs we won't harvest till later in the summer, but the scapes we can do now, the leaves of these plants we can do now, and we're just very, very thankful that the bees have found them, and it's super, super cool. So we've got a little bit of pollinator garden happening all over our garden. All right, this is the garden we're going to ask you to help harvest, and you can take some of that harvest home, and we definitely still need to mulch around the beds, and we'll have a whole list of stuff that you can help with. So check the Sign Up Genius. So let's come over here and we will extinguish our flame, and before we do so, we want to remind ourselves that we are thankful for fragrant things in the garden, things that flavor our food, like onions, like garlic, like chives, like the mint, oregano, and thyme, and the garlic scapes, all those wonderful things that are growing here. So here we are. We extinguish this flame, but we know that the light of truth and the warmth of love go with us in our heart. Have a wonderful week. Thank you.